long-term picture, I cannot say the same about Marvel and the MCU. I tried to do this live stream yesterday and it got pretty negative, and I went further than I probably would have liked to in regards to actually expressing, or the way that I expressed um, my frustrations with the MCU and with Marvel Comics in general. And this time I'm going to go over the same talking points, but I'm going to try and do it in a more constructive manner, and I'm going to try and do it in a more organized manner and try and die down the emotions a bit, because um, when you get emotional, you can go a little bit too far. And I wasn't really happy with how that stream came out. So we're going to try and do this again. This is going to be round two. Again, we're going to be going over the same talking points. And whereas I was very negative in the previous stream, and I'm going to get pretty negative in this stream as well, I do want to start off with the positives. Okay, so the positives about the MCU. I want to lay out my appreciation and my respect for what Kevin Feige and Marvel and Disney have done in regards to the execution of the Infinity Saga. Let's be absolutely clear about this. All right, let's give credit where credit is due. What Marvel and Disney did with the Infinity Saga has never been done before. And it may not ever be done again, at least not in our lifetimes. They took what amounted to how the comics themselves work, where you have this storyline over here and this character doing that and this other character doing this and all these different characters, and weaving their individual stories together to build up to an event. And that event, of course, was the battle with Thanos in Infinity War and an Endgame. To be able to take that level of complexity from the comic books and then to execute it properly on the big screen in theaters on film, that has never been done before. It was a monumental task, and not only were they able to do it and pull it off, but they did it masterfully. So let me give credit where credit is due to Marvel and Disney for what they have done with the Infinity Saga. They did it masterfully. All right. A lot of people doubted it could ever be done, but they did it, and they did it so freaking well. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about Phase 4, but we're going to talk about Phase 4 in a minute. Let me stick with the Infinity Saga for a little bit longer, because it's going to play, it's going to be essential to talk about the Infinity Saga in comparison to what has come after. So the Infinity Saga was so good at, keeping people engaged, keeping people interested for such a long time leading up to the battle with Thanos. And as time went on, it escalated. We got more films over a shorter period of time, and there was a lot of content coming out, but it didn't matter because it was all within the context of these movies. You didn't have to read the comics. You didn't have to know anything about the comics. You just had to go in there with the movies, and you kept up with these movies. And then you were rewarded by keeping up with these movies by this amazing finale to everything. I mean, we go into the first Avengers movie, the first Avengers film, and that alone at the time was so crucial, so paramount to setting the stage for what would come after. You had Iron Man, you had Captain America, you had Thor, you had Hulk, and then you had Hawkeye and Black Widow that were weaved into all those different films. And you have all these different films, and you bring them together, and you have the Avengers. And when that moment happened, when they were all assembled and you see it on the big screen, it's like, my God, like you can't believe what you're seeing. You never thought this day would happen, and it happened. And then not only did they go from that, but then you go into phase 2 and you go into phase 3, and they're building this up more. You have Black Panther with Wakanda. You got the Guardians of the Galaxy. You've got, of course, Asgard. You got all these different factions, and now you're going down to the cosmic universe. It's not just, down to Earth. It's now like the entire Marvel universe. And then finally, it comes down to this final battle with Thanos. And that is one of the most satisfying endings to a plot line that I have ever seen. And to be able to work it together so well, to weave together everything, to have all these moving gears, all these moving parts, and then to finally synchronize them together to give you that satisfying finale, masterfully done. And Disney and Marvel and Kevin Feige should be praised for it to the umpteenth degree. All right. What they did was unheard of. What they did was thought impossible, but they did it anyways. And so I do want to give them all the credit they are due. And it's amazing. It's amazing. They got us all hooked. They got us all hooked. And that's why, because it was so masterfully done, that's why coming off of Infinity War and Endgame and now going into phase 4, it is such a shell shock. It's so shocking to go from that to go into the mediocrity that has been phase 4. And it's just it's jarring. It's absolutely jolting. It's just like, whoa, like what happened? Like what's going on here? Excuse me. Um Phase 4 compared to phase 3 is just it's such a drop off. And there was expected to be some level of a drop off when it comes to phase 4 because again, we just came off of the biggest movie event, you know, maybe of our lifetimes, honestly. And now we go into phase 4 and it's like, well, you know, you expect things to kind of die down a little bit. You expect things to be a little bit more, you know, not as grand scale, I guess is the way you would put it. So you expect, you know, something smaller, something tighter. Um, you don't expect it to be on the same level as what you got in phase 3 because phase 3 was freaking crazy. You don't expect it to be that way. That's understandable. But the problem is that we come off of phase 3 and it just feels like they have no idea what they're doing at this point. We have all these hints and implications for things to come. We have, you know, with the Eternals, which is a snooze fest of a movie, we have this whole idea of the Celestials, you know, and you're thinking, oh, so are we going towards Galactus? Is Galactus going to be the next big bad? Because, you know, we're all thinking, well, phase 4 is probably going to end with Fantastic Four, and Fantastic Four are heavily tied into Galactus. So you're thinking, so is Galactus going to be the new Thanos? Is that where we're going? But then you have Loki and you have the whole Kang situation going on. Um, Now, of course, we have confirmation that Kang is going to be the big bad going forward. So you have all of these different things, and then you have the X-Men waiting in the background. You know, how are they going to implement that? You have all these different things, and it just kind of felt like they didn't know which direction they wanted to go into. So they had hints for this, clues for that, and it's just leaving you like, okay, so what the hell is going on here? Like, where are we headed? You didn't get that sense when it comes to phases 1, 2, and 3 because it's like, you know, you knew at a certain point, you know, it's like, oh, everything's headed towards Thanos. Everything is about the Infinity Stones. Everything's about the Infinity Gauntlet. Everything's about Thanos, Thanos, Thanos. The Infinity Stones, like everything is going towards that. All these films, in some way or another, are eventually leading to the final battle with Thanos. You don't get that sense of, you know, connective tissue in phase 4. You know, in general, it's about the multiverse, but you don't know exactly where it's going. Like, who's the villain? Like, what's the threat? Like, what's the conflict? You don't get that yet. And I think that's been one of the issues with Marvel after the Infinity Saga. So, actually, let's go ahead and switch over to talking about phase 4 while we're at it. Let's see. I think this is phase 4. Yeah, there it is. All right. So let's actually start talking about phase 4. Um, Phase 4 has been a roller coaster. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been exhausting. It's been pretty damn exhausting. So let's talk about some of the stuff that happened in phase 4. You have Black Widow. Whether you like it or you don't like it, I think we can all agree that Black Widow was too little too late. A lot of people have been wanting a Black Widow film for a long time. A lot of people wanted it right after the Avengers film, the first Avengers film came out. I thought the perfect time for Black Widow to get a movie was after Captain America: The Winter Soldier because she was such a major player in that movie. I thought to myself, okay, you have Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Black Widow in there. People love Black Widow in that movie. Like now they need to announce a Black Widow film. And it never happened. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? We're not doing this? But you had the character set up so perfectly to do this. Like, what the hell? But no, apparently we're not doing this. Like, we wait until after, the Infinity Saga is over and, Black Widow's dead, and now we do a movie. It was bad timing and it was too little too late. And then you get to actually, no, it was Shang-Chi that was next, correct? Yeah. Shang-Chi came out next. And Shang-Chi I thought was okay. It wasn't bad. I kind of enjoyed it, but it wasn't up to snuff to what I'm used to from Marvel, to be honest. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible, but you know, I'm glad it exists. I think it was a film that needed to happen because the whole Mandarin situation in the MCU was very confusing. You had the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, but it wasn't really the Mandarin. So now we actually get to see the actual Mandarin in Shang-Chi. And so it does take that whole plot line that was a loose end and it finally ties it up. So I do think it was necessary. And I think going on a larger point here, that's really what phase 4 should have been. And that should have been the focus of phase 4. And that is that phase 4 should have been a transition phase. And some people will argue that it is, but I don't think it's done it particularly well. Phase 4 should have been taking any loose ends, any plot threads that hadn't been tied up in phases 1, 2, or 3, taking those plot threads and finally giving some kind of conclusion to them, finally tying those loose ends. That should have been one of the major focuses of phase 4. And at the end of phase 4, you start to move into the multiverse stuff. Again, multiverse stuff, I don't think really should have been that big of a factor in phase 4. I think it should have been a pretty much an epilogue to the Infinity Saga, more or less. That's what it should have been. Shang-Chi was a good example of that because you take the whole Mandarin stuff that was very confusing throughout the Infinity Saga and you finally tie it up. You finally put a nice little bow on it. And it's like, okay, we got through that. Black Widow, again, is kind of like that, but it should have came before. It should have been part of the Infinity Saga. And then Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Bro, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is one of the most disappointing movies I have seen from Marvel. I love the original Doctor Strange. All right. I love the original Doctor Strange. I loved what it did. I love Doctor Strange, the character from the comics. I love his backstory. I love how his backstory was portrayed on screen. I really enjoy that film. It's one of my favorite MCU films. But to be followed up by Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it was not the sequel that we needed. It was not the sequel that we needed because yeah, it was not the sequel that we needed because it felt disconnected from the original film. If you look at the original film, what did you have happen at the end? You had Mordo, he went off and he was saying, like the world doesn't need sorcerers, this is bad, blah, 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 blah. It sets up this whole thing where he's going to try and fight against, Doctor Strange and the sorcerers. Like that's what he's going to do. He's going to fight against the mystics. He doesn't believe that he believes the mystical arts are doing more harm than good, I should say. So you would think, okay, so the next logical step for Doctor Strange's story outside of his involvement with the fight with Thanos, his individual story would be to deal with Mordo. But no, we get to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and it's used as a medium, it's used as a vehicle in order to set up the multiverse saga. This is why I say that the multiverse stuff is coming too soon. It's coming too soon, and I don't feel like they really have planned it out as well as they did with the Infinity Saga. Doctor Strange 2 should have been about Doctor Strange fighting Mordo. It should about been about, you know, him trying to preserve the mystical arts. That's what it should have been about. That's the next logical step coming out of the original Doctor Strange movie. But instead, we get an alternate universe Mordo where he's joined the Illuminati, and they still haven't explained where the main timeline Mordo is, what's going on with him. I don't know. Um, but it's just kind of been dropped, and it's weird. It's very, very weird, and I do not like what they've done. I don't like it at all what they've done with that plot line. That should have been the next step, and instead, we get America Chavez, and it's just. And the thing is, Doctor Strange didn't even feel like a main character in his own movie. It was just more like the multiverse. Actually, it was more like the Wanda show, coast or guest starring Doctor Strange. Like that's what it felt like. Um, it was just it didn't feel like a Doctor Strange sequel. It felt like a sequel to WandaVision more than anything. And again, I'm still wondering, like, are we going to get this whole thing with Mordo tied up? Like that that was a loose thread from the Infinity Saga that should have been tied up in Phase 4. Again, this should have been another epilogue movie, pretty much. Um, but it felt more like a sequel to WandaVision. And then that ties into one of the other problems that I have with this phase, and that is the over complicated connectedness of the movies with the Disney Plus shows. This is, I think, a long term problem for Marvel that they're going to have to address, but I don't have hope of them addressing it because of what I see coming down the road with Phase 5. And that is, they are tying in these Disney Plus shows too heavily into the movies. And not everybody who's going to see the movies is paying attention to the Disney Plus shows. You can't have one medium connecting to another medium so heavily that it becomes a requirement to enjoy another medium. So, for example, the MCU films, people know, okay, you got to keep, you got to keep caught up with the films. Um, you got to follow the movies because the movies are all connected and they're all part of this larger story. But then you start throwing in the Disney Plus series, and it's like, okay, now you've got to keep up with not only the movies, but now you got to also keep up with the Disney Plus shows. Uh, I mean, what's going to happen next? They're going to be like, well, there's also these novels you got to read. It becomes too much. Again, it's it's quantity over quality when it should be the opposite. It should be quality over quantity. It's just too much. It's too much to handle. And I don't have time to watch all these shows. There's some of them I haven't even seen yet. Like I haven't seen Moon Knight. I don't have time to watch all these shows, man. Like, come on. I have other things to do. I have other things to watch. I know that Marvel's big. I know the MCU is big, but I can't devote 24/7 to the MCU. That's too much. It's one thing to ask me to go watch a 2-hour movie. It's another thing to have me watch a 10-episode series in addition to a 2-hour movie. It's like, no, it's too much. You're spreading it too thin. It's becoming overcomplicated. Because I know for a fact there's people that went into Doctor Strange 2 and they were like, wait a minute, Wanda has kids? When did that happen? It's too much. And it just seems like it's getting worse in Phase 5. So having these shows that are in the MCU is fine, but when you start making them a requirement to understand the movies, that's where you've made a fatal mistake because you're going to lose a lot of the casual audience. You're going to lose a lot of the casual audience, and you're even going to lose people like me that are more hardcore into this stuff. You're going to lose people like me because I don't have the time, and it becomes exhausting. And that's one of the best ways I can describe Phase 4. Phase 4 to me is very exhausting. All right. Here we are near the end of Phase 4, the abrupt end of Phase 4. And I feel burned out. I feel exhausted. I'm just like, man, this is too much. Like, bro, I can't. I just can't. Now, given this is a problem with comic books in general, because there's too much in the comic books. They need to trim the fat in the comic books. You need to make the stories more centralized and focused. You need to narrow it down to some core characters because there's some characters that honestly can be retired. No one gives a damn about. All right. Focus on your core characters. They need to do that in the comic books. But instead of, fixing what's going on in the comic books, they're taking a problem from the comic books and now they're applying it to the MCU, to the films themselves. And it's like, what are you doing? This is why so many casual readers don't keep up with the comic books because it's too complex. Now you're doing the same thing with the MCU. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, no. If anything, the comics should have been more narrowly focused like the movies are. But now you're taking a problem from the comic books and you're applying it to the MCU. Are you crazy? Are you nuts? Like, what are you doing? Okay, like a good example of a show that makes sense would be Marvel's What If. What If is just a fun show that shows you different scenarios that could have played out in the MCU if things had gone down differently. But it's not required to understand the movies. It's just there for fun. That's what these shows should be. They should not be requirements to understand the movies. I shouldn't have to watch WandaVision to understand Doctor Strange 2. All these shows should be is to expand on the movies. It should be there to be like, hey, you know what? If you want to see more of this, we have these shows. Or if you want to get a deeper understanding of some stuff, we have these shows. But these shows aren't required to understand the movies. The movies, you can just go see the movies and you're good. You're fine. You're fantastic. All right. You can keep doing what you've done for the last 3 phases. We're not going to change up that formula because the formula works. And if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. Okay. The shows should be there as extra content. That's all they should be. That's all they should be. Just like with anything else. Look at Star Wars. I shouldn't have to read a novel. I'm looking at you, Episode 9. I shouldn't have to read a novel to understand the plot of Episode 9. You do, however, if you want to understand how Palpatine came back. The novel explains it. The movie does not. But that's a problem. I shouldn't have to read a novel to understand a movie. I should only have to watch the movies to understand the next movie. It's really freaking simple. When you start having all this other stuff and you make it overly complicated, you lose your audience. And that's what's going to happen with the MCU. And I, who, am actually more hardcore into this stuff, even I'm getting exhausted. And I'm just like, man, I like, it's becoming a chore. It's becoming a chore. It's becoming a chore to actually keep up with Marvel. It's not fun anymore. It's exhausting. And this is where we're going to shift over to phase 5. Well, real quick, I do want to say about phase 4. Real quick. Phase 4 ended so abruptly, or is going to end so abruptly, when you look at it's going to be ending with Wakanda Forever. Now, originally, I think the idea was they wanted to end phase 4 by actually ending it with Fantastic Four, which makes a lot of sense from a marketing perspective. Phase 4, Fantastic Four. That makes a lot of sense. But now they're ending it with Wakanda Forever, which I think really shows you how mismanaged this phase has been. Because it's obviously been mismanaged. It's obviously been disorganized. And now they're ending it with Wakanda Forever because I think they're just like, okay, let's just move on. Let's just move on to the next phase. This has been very messy. Like, we're just going to move on. All right. We're going to cut our losses, move on to the next phase. But the problem is that the problems with phase 4 are continuing into phase 5. Look at this chart, man. Here we go again. We got movies and we got shows. And how much do you want to bet that these shows are going to be important to the movies? It's the same mistake you made with WandaVision and Doctor Strange 2, and now you're making that mistake again. So we have Secret Invasion. That's going to be a Disney Plus show. That's obviously going to tie into the Avenger films coming up. Loki season 2, again, going to tie into the Avenger films coming up. Let's see, Daredevil Born Again. I don't know how much that's going to tie into the Avengers stuff, but that should be a movie. I mean, come on. So you have Spider-Man No Way Home, and you bring in Daredevil and Spider-Man No Way Home, which is a movie, And you would think, okay, that cameo of Daredevil in Spider-Man No Way Home, that's going to be that is a foreshadowing. It's set up for a Daredevil movie, but no, it's actually set up for a Daredevil show, which is like, what the hell? Like, if you're going to cameo him in a movie, if you're going to set him up in a movie, then why not give him his own movie instead of it being a show? A setup in a movie should be set up for that character to get their own movie. Do you see what I'm talking about here? It's just it's weird. It's weird. But you've got these shows coming out which are obviously going to be important to the movies, and you're just doing the same mistake you did in phase 4 and repeating it and making it worse in phase 5. So I look at this and I'm just like, I'm not excited at all. I can't get behind this. Like this, it's more of the stuff I hate in phase 4, and they're doing it again and making it worse in phase 5. Why should I be excited for any of this? Marvel announced phase 5 and phase 6, and I just didn't feel anything. I didn't feel any excitement whatsoever. And then you got crap like Agatha. And I'm just like, really? Really? We're Agatha? Who asked for this? About the only things I care about here is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That sounds all right. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, that's going to be good. Captain America New World Order, not looking forward to that at all. Why am I not looking forward to that? Because there was news coming out a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, that apparently they're going to start making Captain America less American. And it's just like, then what's the point of the character? He's supposed to be a representative of what's best about America. What's the point of Captain America if he's less American? Like, what the hell is that? It's stupid. They're making all these decisions that are just, it's idiotic. The Marvels. Oh, yay. More more anti-male sexism. Yay. Guaranteed there's going to be there'll probably be like 10 scenes in there where it's like, this is why men are bad, this is why women are superior, blah 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 blah. We hate men, blah blah blah. I get I did what? No, I'm not going to sit here and be insulted by your product. I'm not going to do it. Screw you. I'm not going to do it. Then we got Blade. I want to get excited for Blade. Blade is a cool character, but when you look at everything else on this, I just don't care. I just don't care. And that's the thing. Like, it's one thing to hate something, but to be apathetic towards something is even worse. And that's where I'm at right now at the MCU. That's where I'm at right now. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. I can't. I'm exhausted. I'm like my dog sitting over here. One of them just groaned or something. They're exhausted. I'm exhausted. Phase 6. Let's talk about phase 6. Yeah, let's talk about phase 6. What we know of phase 6, which is not a lot, to be fair. There's phase 6. Okay. So phase 6. So obviously there's some movies missing here, some series that are missing here. All we have confirmed right now is Fantastic Four, which probably should have been in phase 4. The Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. See, there's the thing. Kang Dynasty. Loki's going to tie into that. Secret Wars, Secret Invasion, that's going to tie into that. So I'm going to have to watch these series in conjunction with these movies in order to understand these Avenger films that are coming out in phase 6. And it's too much. It's too much. And I'm not excited for it at all. At this point, I'm just not. I'm apathetic. I'm apathetic at this point. Hey, Critical Drive 7, what is up? How are you doing? Right now I'm going on a tirade about Marvel and the MCU. I'm not feeling it. I'm really not feeling it right now. I was saying before, I'm kind of exhausted. I'm kind of exhausted when it comes to the MCU at this point and with Marvel in general. Um, so yeah, so we're gonna have to go through all these different series and movies, and it's just I think it's too much. If it's too much for me, someone that actually has a deep love for comic books, if it's too much for me, then it's too much for the casual. And again, like I was saying before, you're taking a problem from the comic books, which is that they're too complicated. There's too many of them. There's too many plot lines going on. That's why comic books lose a lot of casual readers. That is a huge problem in the comic book industry. It's something that I think needs to be addressed and fixed. You're taking that problem, and instead of fixing it, you're now taking a problem from the comic books and you're applying it to comic book movies. That's not good. That's not good. If any, like I said before, if anything, um, the comic books should have taken a note from phases 1, 2, and 3, where it was a more narrow focused um plot line. That's a much better way to do it because throughout all of phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, you always knew this is leading to Thanos. This is leading to Thanos. We know where this is going. I wish they would take that and apply it to the comic books, but now you're taking the problem of the comic books, which is that there's too much, and you're applying it to the movies. Why would you do that? It's so stupid and it's exhausting. It's exhausting in the comic books, and now it's exhausting. You're taking an exhausting issue and applying it to the films. I don't like it. And I don't like where this is going, and it just seems to be getting worse. And I'm just so apathetic with Marvel at this point. Again, they announced phase 5 and phase 6, and I just didn't feel anything. I just didn't feel anything. Not excited. And I know there's going to be more social justice crap. I know there's going to be more wokeness. They're taking that problem from the comic books because Marvel Comics and DC, to be fair, I talked about that in my DC live stream this morning. But there's wokeness and SJW crap in the comics, especially in stuff in the newer comics. And a lot of this stuff coming out now in the future phases is based off of the newer comic books. They're taking those issues and now they're putting it into the movies, and it's going to drive a lot of people away. Critical Draft says, I'll admit for the most part, I'm interested in only Spider-Man. I'm the most invested in Spider-Man since he's one of my favorite characters ever. Though Daredevil and Moon Knight have my interest. I haven't seen Moon Knight yet, but then again, I haven't seen Captain America and the Winter Soldier yet either. Yeah, I was talking about Daredevil earlier. I think Daredevil should have a movie, not a Disney Plus series. Again, you set up Daredevil, you foreshadowed Daredevil in a movie, Spider-Man No Way Home. So wouldn't you think that setup and foreshadowing would be for Daredevil to get his own movie, not a Disney Plus series? It doesn't make sense. See, the thing for me is I was never really a big fan of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, not because of Tom Holland himself. I think Tom Holland is fine, but because for the first two films, Homecoming and Far From Home, the character didn't feel like Spider-Man. It felt like Iron Man's sidekick. It felt like Iron Boy. It wasn't until No Way Home where he gets to talk with Tobey Maguire's Peter and Andrew Garfield's Peter and Aunt May dies that he actually starts to feel like Spider-Man. It's like, oh, now he understands what it means to be Spider-Man. Now he understands, with great power comes great responsibility. He's on his own now. He doesn't have Stark Industries behind him. Now he feels more like Spider-Man. So for the first time, I'm actually interested in the MCU Spider-Man because of No Way Home. Critical Drive says, not necessarily just Spider-Man in general. My favorite version so far is PS4. Yeah, the PS4 Spider-Man, that's how Spider-Man should be. That is a great, great portrayal of Spider-Man. Fantastic portrayal of Spider-Man. That's how Spider-Man should be portrayed. And that's another thing too. PS4 Spider-Man is really, really smart and intuitive and can make a lot out of a little. But MCU Spider-Man is kind of, I don't want to say dumb, but MCU Spider-Man, his intelligence is kind of diminished. And maybe part of that is because of his connection with Tony Stark and everything, so you don't really get to see it on display as much. That could be a problem as well, but that ties into the bigger problem I have with him feeling more like Iron Boy. Honestly, at this point, in regards to just the movies, I'm more interested in seeing Andrew Garfield get a third film. I'm more interested in Amazing Spider-Man 3, and actually wrapping up that story in that trilogy. Because this idea that was brought up in No Way Home about how Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man became a darker character after Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that eventually he got better. I want to see that story now. That sounds interesting. Um, yeah, I want to see a proper conclusion to his story, and I think a lot of people do, especially after No Way Home. Um, but yeah, I'm just kind of apathetic with Marvel at this point. There's just it doesn't excite me. It really doesn't. And the problem is, unlike with DC Comics and the DC films and Zaslav being the head of Warner Brothers now, unlike with DC Comics, where I see some light in the distance, I see some hope for DC Comics, I see hope for the DC films. I don't see that with Marvel. Who at Marvel is really going to course correct here? Um, who's going to fix this? I don't see anyone that's willing to do it. I think they're just going to stick to their guns. And I think what is not working with phase four, they're going to keep going with that, for the foreseeable future. And that's really depressing. Same thing with Marvel Comics. I think it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. Hell, I think in the comics, didn't they just introduce like a new Spider-Man? And I think they actually called him the Cryptacular Spider-Man. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? Like, these people have lost their damn minds. Like, first of all, we didn't need any more Spider-Man, all right? We've already got Miles Morales Spider-Man. We've already got Spider-Gwen. In addition to Peter Parker, like, there's too many Spider-Man. Like, holy Jesus. Like, I'm going to be hearing an old man telling my grandkids, are going to be like, yeah, back in my day, there was only one Spider-Man. Like, why? Why does there need to be so many Spider-Man? Like, come up with some new heroes. Like, what the hell? What the hell? So, like I said, I'm apathetic for Marvel going forward. But you know what's worse than being apathetic? Being insulted. And that's gonna bring us to our final topic. And this, oh boy. This right here. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, here we go. This right here broke the camel's back. Broke the camel's back. Let me preface this by saying, even though phase 4 has not been all that good, in my opinion, phases 1, 2, and 3 were done so phenomenally well, so masterfully, that I had to give them the benefit of the doubt. All right. I had to stick with Marvel because they did something no one thought they could do. And they did it so well. So well. So good. Critical Drive says at this point, I'm more invested in future games than the movies. Marvel Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine as well. Yeah, the games are doing great. The games are doing great. The games are fantastic. They're really killing it with the games, no doubt. But with the cinematic universe, it's just, I mean, what the hell at this point? But like I said, I had to give them a benefit of a doubt. I had to give them the benefit of the doubt because what they did with the Infinity Saga, no one thought they could do. And it was done so well. Like you come out of Endgame and you're like, wow, they actually pulled it off. It was amazing. It was amazing. Credit, again, all credit due to Marvel, to Disney, to Kevin Feige. You guys did something no one thought you could do, and you did it masterfully. So I had to give you the benefit of a doubt. But I'm tired. I'm exhausted. All right? I'm drained at this point. And in this moment where I am so exhausted, you bring this, you put this out. This was the straw that broke the camel's back. This took me from being exhausted and apathetic to angry. Episode 1 of this garbage comes out. And She-Hulk has the gall, the gonads, to speak to Bruce Banner about his anger issues and about how she's better at controlling her emotions than he is. If you know anything about Bruce Banner's childhood, about his backstory, you understand why that scene is so insulting. How dare she? How dare Disney and Marvel let this even write this crap, let alone let it be published, let it go public. Let me tell you about Bruce Banner's backstory in the comics. His childhood was screwed up to hell. All right. He had an abusive dad who hated him, was paranoid as hell. We're talking about hardcore, awful child abuse. And it all culminates in what? Bruce Banner's dad took his mom's head, smashed it into the concrete, into the concrete, into the pavement, right in front of Bruce Banner, bashes her head in, and kills his mother right in front of him. Little Bruce Banner saw this. Massive childhood trauma. Is it any wonder why he has emotional issues? Is it any wonder why he has anger issues? I mean, that's some real shit right there. And then She-Hulk wants to come up in here and say that because she has to work with men every day, that is comparable and or worse than all the childhood trauma that Bruce Banner went through? Are you kidding me? That is insulting. I mean, like right now, I want to vomit. I mean, think about what she's saying. Think about what she's saying. What she's saying is that, oh, poor little Bruce Banner. Oh, what? You had to watch your mommy die. You had to watch your own father kill your own mother when you were a kid. Oh, boo-hoo. I have to work with half of the human race. I have to, like, what the? Number one, you insult my intelligence, expecting me to be okay with that. Number two, I'm a victim of childhood trauma. I had an abusive parent. I've talked about this on other live streams. My mom is out of her flipping mind. My mom was very abusive. She beat me with a belt that had spikes on it so bad one time, I had trouble walking for 2 days. And my dad told her, he said, if you ever do that to my kid again, I will kill you, because that's what a protective dad does. And speaking of my dad, when I was a kid, I was in my room. My dad was in my room. Here, my mom comes in after they had an argument. She tries to kill him. She tries to stab my dad in the back. Luckily, I'm there and I tell him, Dad, look out. Turns around and stops her. But can you imagine seeing something like that as a kid? Yes. I've gone through childhood trauma. So when I hear this character, She-Hulk, come out and make light of childhood trauma, compare that to having to work with men, to her sexism towards men, to her hatred of men. No, no. I'm not going to watch this crap. I'm not going to pay you money to insult me. I mean, taking the glasses off, I mean, it's disgusting. So I'm already at rope's end, just at the point of apathy towards your crap. And then you put this on your streaming service? No, no. Bruce Banner is a strong character, not because he's the Incredible Hulk and he can, smash things. He can battle gods. That's not why the Hulk is strong. That's not why Bruce is strong. Bruce Banner is strong because of the strength it takes to overcome the source of his anger, what triggers him becoming the Hulk, which is his trauma, which is his pain, and he finds a way to overcome it. That's why the whole Professor Hulk thing is so, beloved by people, because it's him finding that balance. It's him overcoming it and able to control it. Controlling the Hulk is controlling the anger. Controlling the anger is to be able to overcome his past. That's where his strength comes from. And she has the gall to insult that. Up yours. And that's why I am done with this crap until further notice. I am not going to focus on the MCU. I will talk about it from time to time. All right. But when a show comes out, don't expect me to review it. Don't expect me to go see a Marvel movie if it's involved with the MCU. Because at this point, no, I'm not paying to be insulted. I'm not doing that to myself. I'm not doing that. And I wish I could end this discussion on a lighter note. I wish, like I did with the DC stream, where I talked about how I have hope for the future of DC and Warner Brothers and the comics and the films under Zaslav. I like what he's doing. I see a lighthouse in the distance. No, 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 no. With Marvel, I don't see that. I don't see the hope. We're sailing through a sea of crap right now, and there's no lighthouse to be found. That's not to say that that won't happen someday. I mean, at the end of the day, common sense, truth, logic ultimately win out. So someone will come along and will fix this crap at some point. But I don't know when but unlike with DC, I don't see that happening anytime soon. And by anytime soon, I mean in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm not going to put myself through this. I'm not. And it sucks because I love Marvel. I'm a bigger fan of DC. I always have been. DC is my first love when it comes to comics. But I'm also a fan of Marvel. And I hate to say that, but I will not put myself through that. Critical Drive says, I do like the idea of a Spidey that uses crutches for web swinging, but yeah, I can understand if you feel like there's too many Spideys for you. In all honesty, I just don't like the idea of creating too many of the same superhero. I think it's lazy. I think it's unimaginative. I was all right with Miles Morales when he was first introduced because, number one, it was in an alternate universe. It was in the Ultimate Universe, which doesn't exist anymore. But also because that Peter Parker died in that universe and Miles Morales took up the mantle. So it's kind of like, the whole thing, like if Bruce Wayne ever dies, then one of the Robins would take up the Batman mantle. Similar scenario. So I was okay with it in that case. I'm also okay with Spider-Gwen being an alternate universe Spider-Man where she gets bitten by the radioactive spider instead of Peter Parker. That's fine for an alternate universe. But when you start bringing all these things into the mainline universe, you diminish Peter Parker as a result. In the mainline universe, again, what if scenarios, alternate universes, that's fine. That's what they're there for. That's where this stuff belongs. But the mainline universe should be Peter Parker, just like the mainline Superman should be Clark Kent. It's like it's just it's lazy is all. It's lazy. Critical Drive says, I'm sorry about your trauma. I can only imagine how painful it was for you. I certainly hope that you're doing okay. Um, I don't talk to my mom anymore. I don't have anything to do with her. Last time we really had any kind of conversation was when my grandmother passed away. Um, but I've pretty much cut her out of my life. Um, yeah. So, and I don't deny. Look, because of the way my mom was, I know like I'm a more hard-hearted person. Like I do get angry about stuff. I'm not violent, but I do get angry about stuff. I am um about certain things, like when again, things like this, like you can see how this is affecting me. Um doesn't mean I'm going to get in a physical altercation over it, but I'm strongly opinionated. Well, I've always been strongly opinionated, but sometimes I do have to learn to cool the temper. Not gonna lie, but I'm also I don't know how you would put it. I don't get attached easily to people, or I try not to. And part of that is not having really that maternal um guidance that every child needs. You need a mom and a dad. And unfortunately, there's just some situations like mine where one or the other is just not there, and it does cause problems. No doubt about that, but you can overcome it. You just have to have the will, the determination, and it's not easy, but you can overcome it and be a good person and be a decent person. I've done it. Other people can do it. Anybody struggling with that, if you're watching this stream or watching it after the fact, you can do it. All right. You just have to decide you don't, you have to come to separate yourself from your trauma. You have to come and separate yourself from your past. And, I'm disgusted by what happened to me. I hate it. And if I'm being completely honest, I hate my mom for it. But in that anger and that disgust for what happens, it makes me want to separate myself from it even more and to put it behind me. And I'm not all the way there yet, but I'm working on it. And it's a day by day thing. So yeah. But stuff like this, what's going on in She-Hulk, doesn't make it any easier. But anyways, yeah, I'm done. Until further notice, I'm really not interested in the MCU at this point. I'm really not. Um yeah, I'm not interested. If this is where it's going, you can count me out. You can count me out. I, I'm I just I don't care. Um and it's sad because again, the Infinity Saga was just so freaking amazing, and to see how quickly things have just gone to crap is just it's not a fun feeling. It's not a fun feeling. But maybe as Marvel starts to go downhill, maybe that's where DC comes in to fill in that spot, because nature abhors a vacuum. All right. So if the MCU is leaving a vacuum in the market, that's where DC could come in 2 to 3 years when Zaslav gets everything planned out, gets everything ready to go. And it's like, hey, let's do this. I got everything planned out. Let's start this new cinematic universe. Maybe DC fills in the gap and it'll finally be DC's time to shine. Maybe that's what happens. We'll see. We'll see. But that's my rant on Marvel. That's my feelings on where Marvel has been, where Marvel is, and where Marvel is going. And I don't like where it's going. So yeah. Um anybody got any more comments, questions, go ahead and put them out, but we're going to wrap this up soon. That's just kind of my feeling on it right now. I will say before I go, I may be doing another live stream on this channel tomorrow. Tomorrow's Labor Day. It's not going to be early in the morning or early in the afternoon like with these because we're having a cookout. But late tomorrow night, I might do a live stream, but no promises. It honestly just depends on how tired I am because I'm the cook. Um, I'm the grill master around here. So a lot of that stuff I got to take care of myself. So um, depends on how tired I am and stuff. But I may have a casual, just chill out stream on this channel tomorrow. I've been doing a lot of live streams on the other channel, the gaming channel, which, by the way, if you're into gaming and you want to see me do some games, talk about some games, subscribe to the gaming channel. The link to that will be down in the description box below if you want to check that out. But I've been doing a lot of live streams over there, so I think I'm going to do another live stream on this channel tomorrow night, maybe, but no promises. I'm just considering it at this point. No promises, but I might. Just a chilled out Labor Day live stream tomorrow night, maybe. But yeah, so of course, subscribe to this channel, like the video, click the bell for notifications if you're into comic books, if you're into um anime, if you're into manga, if you're into movies, Star Wars, etc. Subscribe to this channel. If you're into gaming, go subscribe to the other channel. That will be down in the description box below. And yeah, Critical Drive 7 says, so that Wonder Woman game, yeah, could be good. I like what I see. I like what I see from Arkham Knights. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick that up when it launches, though, unfortunately, because getting a PlayStation 5 right now it's wow. It's nuts. And apparently they're going to be raising the price on PlayStation 5, which is going to make it even worse. And honestly, what I'm really focused on right now is getting a new computer. The computer I'm using right now, the desktop is getting slow, it's getting laggy, and it's probably an 8-year-old computer, so that's kind of to be expected. I'm thinking maybe this Christmas I'm going to have to upgrade and get another desktop. My laptop, however, is fine. Like my laptop is still running smooth. So if there comes a point to where I have to switch things up, I might use the laptop instead. But yeah, right now, PlayStation 5, man, I don't know. I want to get it before Final Fantasy 16 comes out next year, but this generation of gaming has just been I don't know, like it's just been weird. Part of that is because of the pandemic, part of that is because of supply shortages. But like it doesn't even feel like we're in a new console generation. Like it's just and I've really had no desire to upgrade. Like I'm fine with my PlayStation 4 Pro, like honestly. And if I need to, I can start getting into PC gaming, which I've actually considered because the modding scene for Kingdom Hearts 3 is crazy. But yeah. I'm interested in the Wonder Woman game, but we need to see some gameplay. We need to see some story stuff. And to be honest, like I wonder if that's still on the deck, like with Zaslav taking over. Like, are they still going to do the Wonder Woman game? I would think so because the games have been really successful. Like DC games have been really, really successful. So I would think so. I don't see a reason why he would cancel it unless he takes a look at it and it's just really bad. But I don't see why he would cancel it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the Wonder Woman game. And yeah, if you guys are interested in DC discussion, I did that earlier this morning. It should be on the channel. Go check it out. I'm a lot more hopeful about DC than I am about Marvel right now. But guys, we are nearing the 1 hour mark, so I think we're going to wrap it up there. I really don't have anything else to talk about. Yeah, I needed to get this out. I needed to just, be honest about where I am with the MCU right now. I'm kind of where I am with the MCU right now is pretty much where I am with Star Wars. I just don't care. Like it's that bad. Like I'm just apathetic. Like again, I said earlier in this stream, it's one thing to hate something. It's another thing to be apathetic. Like I don't hate Marvel. I don't hate Star Wars. I still love these things in general. But the direction they're going in and that they have been going in recently, I'm very apathetic about. And I'm not interested. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. Be sure to subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. Check out the gaming channel. That's gonna be linked down below. Again, I may do another live stream tomorrow night. I haven't made up my mind yet. It just depends on what happens. It depends on how quickly the family gets out of the house or not. Depends on how tired I am from cooking all day. But if we do, it'll be a chilled live stream right here on this channel. So yeah, I might be seeing you guys tomorrow. But if not, you all have a great Labor Day. Enjoy your Labor Day. Enjoy your time off. Have a great Labor Day weekend. Have some fun. Be safe. And until the next one, this is Jessica James with the Z signing out.